we still need the stories, whether we read modern novels or not. It's like, we need that connection, whether it's with our elders or with our kids. We pass these stories on as something precious. For me personally, it's probably just the unknown. I've always been drawn more to the unknown and whatever the beyond of normal life. So I would actually go out and look for these. We would go to haunted houses. We would go to haunted areas of the cities, see what was going on. Yeah. Now, whatever that comes from, I don't know, but it kept life interesting.
It was almost like an escape.
Definitely an escape. Family life was not a happy life, so that was an escape. Oh, definitely.
Hey, welcome to the Floaties for Krakens podcast. I am your host, Camille Maria Costa, and it is a brilliant day to be monstrous. Hi everyone, welcome back to Floaties for Krakens, season 2, episode 3. I'm so excited. I'm so excited that this season is shaping up to be the season of my dreams. It's been so much fun. I'm so excited for all the things that you all are about to learn about and see, and all the people you're about to learn about and see, including the individual that I'm introducing in this episode. The incredible, the amazing, lovely Kayt Novak. Yay! Gosh, I first met Kayt my first day of work at the job I'm currently working at, the Kentucky Folk Life program. And like any person starting a new job, right? It's scary. You have a little bit of imposter syndrome. You don't really know what you're doing. And it was just such a pleasure and a privilege to work with Kayt. Kayt, my goodness, what a freaking superstar of a human being. Just, I have never met anybody in my life that fights so with all of the heart and all of the strength and all the bravery and all the courageousness that she does about topics that she cares about so deeply. She is just fierce, like the fiercest friend, the fiercest person I've ever met. And I am just so moved every single day by this human being and by her words and by her acts and what she does. Not to mention she has one of the most cutest dogs on the entire planet. Shout out to Doja. I don't know. I'm just so happy that the world gets to hear about the incredible Kayt. I think you're gonna love her just as much as I do. Kayt, thank you for everything. Thank you for being so lovely and so incredible. And I know you're gonna change the world one day. I just know it. I'm so excited, and people are so lucky to be able to work with you and to see your work. And I just know I'm the luckiest person, not only to learn about your work scholarly, but to have you as a friend. But yeah, I guess a little bit about Kayt. In the world of folk studies, in her words, Kayt Novak is a folklorist from Nevada, although she now lives in Maryland. She earned her BA in Hospitality Management and Anthropology from UNLV in 2015 and her MA in Folk Studies from WKU in 2023. Right now, she works for the NCTA, or the National Council for the Traditional Arts, planning folk festivals and other events centered around folk artists. She enjoys researching supernatural and sustainable tourism, folklore and pop culture, and occupational folklore. When she isn't exploring the traditional arts, she's watching a Lakers game. Again, the biggest Lakers fan I have ever met. Me being a Celtics fan, I am so It's just the best friendship. She's so lovely and so mean to me, and it's all in good fun. She also loves cheesy ghost shows with her Shih Tzu, Doja, sleeping or stressing about the current political climate. Once again, one of the most fierce fighters of women's rights, LGBTQIA plus rights, cultural rights, social rights, environmental rights, political, like she's just incredible. I love this person so deeply, and I am just so excited that you all get to listen to her wealth of knowledge. She's incredible. So yeah, obviously this person is amazing and loves basketball. And let's just say all monsters need a little bit of a helping hand, right? So, ladies and Cuttlefish, let me introduce to you Alley-oops for Braxxies.
Well, hi, Kate.
Hi.
How
What's
are you?
up? I'm good. How are you?
Yeah. Alive and breathing.
Amen to that. Amen to that.
That's all we can do at this point. So,
Yes.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
Oh my
just starting to
gosh.
get cold here, so.
Oh, what is it like over there? What is the weather like constantly?
Unclear.
Okay.
It changes so often.
Yeah.
And I think, so I'm in Maryland, to give context.
Right.
It's cold right now, early December.
Right.
But it hasn't snowed yet. It's like in the 40s and 50s. It's very misty and spooky. So
That's great. That's perfect.
yeah.
Well, good.
Yeah. I
Well,
like it.
I'm glad that you're at least having a good time, a relaxing time. Doja's there with you. For people who don't know, that's Kate's incredible, amazing angel of a dog.
Yeah, you will no doubt hear her. She's getting ready to bark at somebody outside. There's been somebody outside metal detecting around my house for the last like 3 hours.
Interesting.
I know, right? I kind of want to go out there and see what he's doing and if he's finding anything cool. But anyway, so you'll probably hear her bark at some point. She's an old lady.
She'll make a cameo or some sort. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for the people who don't know who you are, Kate, who are you?
Oh, yeah.
What do you do?
Yeah, so my name is Kayt Novak. I'm a folklorist, a brand new baby folklorist. I just graduated from WKU in May.
Woo!
With a master's in folk studies. Yes, very exciting. I currently work for the National Council for the Traditional Arts, where I plan, me along with a team of others, plan folk festivals. We do the National Folk Festival and a few others. But I also do some non-folk music related things in my free time. Generally just like all things weird and spooky. I love a good cemetery crawl. Scary movies, whatever.
Yeah.
A good Lakers game. They won last night.
Kate is the biggest Lakers fan I think I've ever met in my entire life. In life. And like not even like joking, not even originally from LA. Like
No.
Kate is the biggest Lakers fan.
But I am from Western Nevada. I should make that known that I'm from Western Nevada. So I'm as close as you can get without being from California. For the record.
In that general vicinity.
Yeah, so I always feel like I have to say that because I swear I'm not like a total bandwagon fan. But yeah, I love the Lakers. I like basketball in general, though. I'm good at. I also like the Las Vegas Aces from my WNBA stands out there. They're bad bitches. They just won the championship.
That's insane,
again,
isn't it?
2 years in a row. Come on.
It's kind of brilliant to watch. It's something else. Like it's just they need to get paid more. I don't know who is listening that would need to know that.
That's the tangent. We can do a whole other podcast about WNBA pay discrimination.
Just that. Yeah, absolutely. So
but yeah, so it's basketball season right now. So I'm cold chilling, watching my league pass, having a good time.
It's so much fun. I'm trying to do my best to like really like focus in on every game and like understand things and understand players, and it's been fun.
Well, you're watching the Celtics, so you don't need to do any of that. You're fine. You don't have to worry.
Well, this is the first time I feel like there is a little bit of breaths being taken this season. Like, I'm like, ooh, okay, all right. But I still think they're going to keep us on our toes, like, forever.
Oh, yeah.
Like, for the time. I think so.
The Celtics and the Lakers both will. They're going to have like a tumultuous season for sure. It's going to be a good time.
It's true. Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. But yeah, this is the wonderful Kayt and all the things.
Yes. We won't talk about basketball the whole time. I promise. We'll talk about fun, spooky monsters. It'll be better.
Basketball is fun too. Maybe there'll be a couple of metaphors in there. I don't know. But yeah, I had the pleasure
actually.
of see. I had the pleasure of meeting Kayt for the very first time. Gosh, it feels like years ago, but it was literally end of March. You know what I mean? Like beginning of April. That feels like centuries ago.
I know. It really freaks me out, honestly.
It's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy. And I'm so sad because like I, finally made a friend that I was like so excited about, that we were like all like we had the same likes, dislikes, like
I know
everything. And then, Kayt graduated. And life moves on.
I know. Yeah, Camille was my boss for a few fleeting months.
2 seconds.
A beautiful, beautiful time.
It was fun.
Yeah, I know. I really, honestly, I miss Bowling Green. I miss my girls.
Yeah. Oh, they miss you too. They talk about you all of the time. Constantly.
I'm the
constantly. Speaking of which, you have to remind me. Corey reminded me of some crazy drama that was happening with I forget, something about spirits and demons and like, it was like crazy. So I need to talk to you about that later. Remind me.
Hell yeah. I want to be in on the demonic tea. Sounds amazing.
It's great. It's demonic hot blood. Yeah, it's great. So I'll talk to you about that.
Cool.
But Kayt, like it seems to me like you've always been kind of the person that's gravitated towards the spooky, but was there like a spark for you for that? Or like when did it happen?
Yeah.
Begin?
I definitely have always had a little bit of a streak. I was thinking about this, pondering over such questions. And my mom, I think we have to blame it on her because she has, I know, right? She has a little spooky streak in her.
Yeah.
And I definitely have early, that sounds mean, but it's not in the mean way.
Perfect. It's perfect.
I like remember watching like cheesy ghost hunting shows with her from like a young age. And like, I vividly remember there's a haunted hotel in rural Nevada. It's known to be very haunted. It's called the Mizpah. It's rad as hell. Oh, I've stayed there many a time and never had any even remotely freaked out moments, which is unfortunate, but
that's very unfortunate.
I know. But I remember sitting in the halls with her at like 2 a.m, being like, "Are there ghosts?" She's about it. So I think that it's probably hers where I get it from, and was always like kind of into like the benign spooky. I've definitely taken it further now. I love cemeteries. I love cryptids.
Yeah.
But they're pretty cool with it. My parents, the other day, they asked if I knew who Mothman was. And I was so impressed that they knew who Mothman was.
You're like, Mom, Dad, you have no idea.
That's what I said. I was like, do I know who Mothman is? Come on.
Do I live under a rock? Of course I do. Oh.
But yeah, so I would say, but I always have, I definitely have always kind of liked, and we have to give a shout out to my friend Brittany, who forced me, I love Brittany. Shout out Brittany. She's pregnant again. We love you. Congratulations, Brittany.
Gosh, congratulations. I've heard about you, Brittany, so much, just so it's not weird. But
I'm so happy. She would force me when we were like preteens, tweens, she would like force me to watch scary movies with her. And there was one called Darkness Falls that was like terrifying. I was 11, so it might not be terrifying now. But she we watched that movie like 15,000 times. It desensitized me, and I kind of started liking scary movies after that.
Yeah.
So I do give Brittany some props for that.
Shout out Brittany.
She definitely. I think in her mind she was like, "Bitch, I need to watch scary movies with somebody, and you're gonna be it. So we're doing this."
We're doing this journey together.
Yeah. And she's still like we still talk about scary movies sort of often. She has young children, so I don't know if she's getting into them as often anymore.
Fair.
But
That's
still.
fair. Totally fine. There's still a lot of creepy cartoons that I feel like her kids would enjoy. So
I actually, I don't have it. I just bought her kids Counting to One, or ABCs with Mothman. Yeah.
what?
It's like a children's book, Mothman themed.
That's
And
incredible.
I've decided that I'm getting all of her kids just straight up cryptid themed everything from now on.
Yeah. I think that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Yeah. That's so awesome. So when you say like you love a cemetery and you love to like cemetery crawl, what do you mean? What do you mean by that?
Just like wandering through, really. Sometimes I'll try and do a little recon before I go to see if there's like any notable graves or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, that's one of my favorite things to do if you're like have the time and you're driving through like an old town or something. Go check out their cemetery. It's always going to be cool if you're into that. I very much acknowledge not everybody's into that. I've like mentioned this, especially like in my office. I have like accidentally established myself as the just weird, creepy one who likes all this stuff.
No, it's not weird. It's not weird.
But yeah, they're rad. You can always find some cool stuff. There's one. I was house sitting for some friends in Baltimore, and they live next to a 60-acre cemetery.
Holy
60 acres.
That's crazy.
And it's like was established like in the late 1800s. It's not even that old.
Dang.
It's crazy. And so I went and it made like 3 hours. I just wandered through. And like there wasn't anything super, it's not like the craziest cemetery I've ever been in, but it was huge and it was cool.
Yeah, it's neat. Yeah. I know what you mean. And there's just like obviously so many emotional ties to cemeteries. Like there's just so much activity in general because, people experience a lot of grief for the first time in cemeteries, or immense amounts of joy of just thinking about, those individuals and the life they had. I've met some lovely cemetery workers. They're also so incredible.
Yes.
And sweet and nice, and they keep, such difficult jobs. It is a difficult job, and they do it so well.
Yeah. I could not do it. I don't think I could work in a cemetery as much as I do love it. And I appreciate the regional aspect of a cemetery too.
Yeah.
Like, you're from a deserty area, so just the differences in cemeteries between regions and how they kind of mark the graves. Yeah, I really you can learn a lot from a community or about a community just by checking out their cemeteries.
Cemetery.
Not only how they cared for the dead at the time of, but now too, how they care for these, 100-year-old markers and stuff like that. It's always really interesting.
No, that's a really good point. I never thought about it that way.
But they're cool.
That's crazy.
Check out your local cemetery.
Hey, yeah. If you need a quiet time, you want to go read a book.
Or honestly, findagrave.com is like, if you're bored, Find a Grave is such a fun, like, because you can just go to click on a state, and then you can find all the famous people that are buried in that state, and you can like sort it by grave, by region. Like you can sit on findagrave.com for hours. I swear to God.
I didn't even know this existed.
Yes. Oh man,
that's incredible. Well, I know what I'm going to spend my Sunday afternoon doing.
Yes. Oh, I swear to God, like highly recommend Find a Grave. Yeah, because
great.
You can really like narrow it down by region and stuff like that. It's really interesting.
Well, that sounds super fun, and I'm definitely going to do that. That sounds lovely.
Do it.
Well, speaking of beings that may be passed on or not, I'm interested, Kayt. In your words, what do you think a monster is?
Yes, such a great question. And I think my answer probably is similar to everybody else's answer. But it's just anything that scares you, whether that be something you've created in your own brain, under the bed, in the closet, boogeyman, or it's like a real world monster. I think there's a lot of examples of that, especially now, Middle East, Eastern Europe, things are terrifying. There's monsters.
Yeah.
But there's also, like our own imagination. We do it to ourselves too. So it's whatever you want it to be. Anything that scares you, I think that's a monster, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
There
That's so
has to be
vague.
some. No, it's not. No, it's not. Like there has to be some sort of fear factor there.
Yeah.
But they can resemble a lot of different things. Not necessarily, like you said, the monster under your bed, although they are that, but people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's great. That's a great definition for sure. Do you have early memories of monsters? I know you were saying, right, like your mom would do spooky stuff with you and your friend Brittany, you guys would watch movies and things, but do you have any iconic moments like that you can remember with monsters?
Yeah, I have to say my relationship with monsters specifically from a young age was always kind of vague. I
Yeah.
never really had like oh, there's like a monster I need to be afraid of type fear.
Yeah.
I very random, but I grew up in rural Nevada, right? I'm from the desert. And going outside at night, like to empty the garbage or whatever, used to scare the tits off me. Oh my God. I used to hate going outside. And I just had like this feeling like there was something out there, And like I grew up in like coyote territory, like there were creatures everywhere. But there was like that feeling of like, oh, don't go out here. And so that was as weird as that sounds, that's kind of my earliest like memory of being like scared of the unknown, kind of,
Yeah. Yes.
But yeah, I was never like, oh man, Bigfoot's coming to get you. Like I never had those feelings,
There was just a sense.
There was like a sense. Yeah, it was just spooky. And I still, my parents still live in the same house. And while I've definitely grown out of that, every once in a while, like I'll be out there and I'll just be like, this is like, some shit has gone down here in in the histories that makes this place weird. Like we very much are in indigenous territory of like the Washoe people, and like I think about them often when I'm like out where my parents live, because like they were out there hanging out, and there's some juju in those hills. I fully believe that.
Yeah, I can totally attest to that. I think being in the desert, and you and I are very like we have such desert hearts. I think like because we were born there and there's just such beauty to like a cactus, right? Like there's just so much love
I love a good cactus.
For a desert. Love a cactus. And you're right. Like there is such when you look out into the dark of night into a desert that just doesn't end, there is something so otherworldly about that.
Oh yeah.
And like you said, spiritual activity. A lot of lovely indigenous individuals, have histories there, and unfortunately, a lot of terrible blood was spilt. Terrible situations, a lot of horrible things happened to really beautiful people, and so it's got a story.
Absolutely.
And like you said, it's alive. Like there is something else out there.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. On top of that, like in the slightly more recent history, it's also the specific area where I'm from is like hardcore mining country. Like I'm from like right outside of Virginia City, Nevada, which is like, it's just the Ghost Adventures dudes go up there all the time. They love them. Spooky for sure, but it's mining history is deep, and so that comes with bloodshed and just not even just that, but like that kind of hustle. Like we really have to work our asses off to like survive out here. I think that like leaves a mark, So yeah, I feel like that when I'm out in them hills for sure.
Yeah, that's so crazy too. I'd love to pick your brain sometime more about that mining area, because there are actually so many in a lot of different traditional folklore legends and folk tales about monsters being the actual, whether it's a cave or a mountain or some sort of cavernous entity, because so many lives were lost in any sort of mining town.
Yeah.
And so they would become monsters. That region would become a monster in and of itself, which is crazy to think about.
I love that. Spooky. We're getting deep. Now.
I know, we're getting deep. Speaking of going further too, I know this word has been thrown around a lot already, but for people that may not know, and this might be a complicated question, but what is a cryptid?
Yes. What is a cryptid? That's such a great question.
It's a hard
I think to
question.
me, in my opinion, a cryptid is anything like a creature of sorts, which spoiler, Flatwood fits all the definitions. So like, you know, we can get into that later. But
Oh, absolutely.
a creature adapted from oral histories, legends, lore that is kind of lived on essentially. And so I think I was like trying to think of examples of like cryptids, like would the banshee be a cryptid? I think that's more of the ghost category, right? But also it depends who you ask, and like you know. So I think it's very fluid, right? I think a cryptid is going to be something different depending on who you ask. But for me, it's I don't want to say mammalian like creature because I think that's too defined, but you know, it's some sort of and physical, like a chupacabra. I think that's a cryptid all day.
Me too.
I think that falls into it. Loch Ness, cryptid. Fish-based cryptid. Sea-based cryptid.
Yeah. And I think, as you mentioned, I think you said some really perfect keywords. Like, first of all, the fluidity of a cryptid, right? And also the air of mystery is that's what makes a cryptid. You don't really know where its lines are and where its boundaries are. That makes a cryptid. But also the locality, as you said. Like, there are so many local legends often tied to these specific creatures about, you know, for example, the one we're talking about today, right, is West Virginia all day, right? And like there is, and we are going to get into more of that. But I think not only that, but the last thing you said too, this idea of believability. Is it real? Is it not real? And also, like believing the people that saw it is also a huge conversation to be had too.
Oh my gosh. That's the conversation with cryptids, right? And yeah, fully agree.
Yeah.
Complicated. That's the
that is the definition. Everything and nothing. So
everything and nothing.
So Kayt, who in the world is the Flatwoods Monster?
Okay. So I'll just like dive into the story.
I'm excited.
And I do feel like it's important to like maybe not the most well-known monster out there, the Flatwoods Monster, which is, you know, fair. So essentially, the story goes, in 1952, there was a group of boys playing outside, teenage boys, 12 plus. That's teenage, right?
Yeah.
Playing outside in Braxton County, West Virginia, Flatwoods, the town of Flatwoods.
Yes.
And they see, which I did not realize that Flatwoods was the name of the town for a long time.
Neither did I. Yeah.
It's physically, you can go to Flatwoods, Virginia, which is rad. I've been very recently.
Yeah,
it's cool.
You did.
So they see this crazy shining light in the sky. And they're like, oh, damn, what's that? And they watch it kind of arc and fall to the ground. And they see like essentially a crash. And they're like, holy crap, we have to go check it out.
Yeah.
So on their way, two of the boys, Fred and Ed.
Love that.
Names. I know.
Incredible.
They grab their mom, which, wholesome.
Oh, so beautiful that they trust her.
If you're going to go check out a cryptid, you got to bring mom along because she might get worried.
Bless them.
I know. Fred and Ed. Fred just passed away this year too. Anyways,
really? Oh, okay. I want to circle back to that. R.I.P.
Yes. So they have like a little posse and they head out to the crash site, and immediately they come upon, like in the hills, they come upon appears to be like a ship, a vessel that has crashed to the ground. Okay. There's this gas emitting from it. It's strong. It smells really strongly of like rotten eggs, sulfa.
Mm-hmm.
They're totally freaked out. Like, what the hell is happening? Yeah. All of a sudden, one of their flashlights kind of points into the tree line, and they see this creature, massive, 10 feet tall plus, which is where the NBA comes back in because Come on.
Think about that, okay? Think about how tall this guy was.
Like,
yeah.
Wembanyama has nothing on him. Okay.
He could dunk on him all day. All right. Just saying.
Number 1 draft pick, 2024. Okay. So, massive 10-foot tall creature. We're making this. They were freaked. It should be noted. They were totally freaked.
It was scary.
They see this massive creature. Armor, machine-like, is kind of what they describe it as. The counts kind of vary, but it sounds like it had like some sort of green cloth over it, or like the body itself was green. Massive glowing red eyes.
Yeah.
Spade-like head, comes to like a little point kind of. That's a key.
Yeah.
That's like a tulip shape, spade like deck of cards.
Yeah.
And like spindly robot-like arms, and floats. Does not walk, glides. And so as their flashlight hits the creature sees them, and it lets out this insane high-pitched shrieking sound and spits like some sort of oily substance at the group. They dip. They get the hell out of there. They're
Rightfully
totally
so.
free.
Absolutely.
As one would be, right? So immediately they get back to their house. They start experiencing nausea, vomiting, like pretty intense symptoms. And those symptoms persist for a few days afterward too. Supposedly similar to what you'd experience if you had encountered mustard gas. So like some sort of like gaseous poisoning type situation is happening. They also immediately call like the sheriff, the local people to like, let's go check this out. So they go right away, they go back up to the crash site. It's gone. Everything's gone. Ship's gone, creature's gone.
Of course.
But they can tell that something was there. There's indentations in the ground.
Yeah.
They still have kind of the smell is sort of lingering. There's burnt, the vegetation around is burnt. So like something went down.
Yeah.
And they, like I said, the people really did get sick. They had like some kind of weird poisoning going on. And that same time, a bunch of different people saw lights in the sky all around the whole region, for within like a 3 or 4 state region. There was lights, all sorts of craziness was spotted.
Yeah.
Many people also saw like the same lights crash to the ground, and another couple spotted the Flatwoods monster right around the same time. They were driving, they see it in their car.
Yeah.
Their descriptions are almost identical. Giant, tall, crazy looking creature with that spade-like head. And so pretty much right away, it takes off within the folklore of the area. Oh, and it should be noted that supposedly, and there are some pretty decent sites that, or sources that cite that the government did investigate. Even if it wasn't like an intense, supposedly they were like, yo, something's going on in West Virginia, let's go check it out. And supposedly, Kathleen May, the mother, got a letter from the Pentagon a few months afterward that was like, oh, it was just a test, rocket test, government test. Don't you worry. And maybe don't talk about it anymore. Maybe keep your mouth shut. Like it.
Shove it under.
Yeah. And so, but pretty much immediately it took off. Thousands of people came. It was national news right away. People were into it. And the town kind of embraced it as their own. And so even though you only have these few sort of fleeting sightings in the early 50s, it was really embraced and has sort of become the mascot of Flatwoods to a small extent. Braxton County for sure. They gave it lots of different nicknames. It's also known as Braxxie, the Braxton County monster.
Braxxie.
I know, Braxxie, right? There's the Flatwoods Museum, which I think shout out to Andrew Smith, who's the director of the Flatwoods Museum.
Yeah, that's so incredible.
I know, for kind of being extra nice to me when I visited a few weeks ago. But yeah, so that's the Flatwoods monster. That's the story of the Flatwoods monster. The lore has evolved into its own thing,
Sure.
And a lot of people really debate as to whether it was an alien. That's kind of the common idea, is that it was an alien. There's a lot of other people that think it was a cryptid, a monster, just like we like to talk about.
Yeah.
And there's also a fair amount of people that think it's like a government conspiracy type situation, like CIA cover-ups. So yeah, supposedly like Men in Black were in town afterward, and like, it gets real, it gets deep. And it should be noted that we're close to Mothman territory. We're only 2 hours from Point Pleasant.
Yeah.
Which would which was about 10 years later. But so there's some spook going on.
There's some
in West
stuff
Virginia.
going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. See, like I actually hadn't heard about the Flatwoods monster. And I think I first heard about Flatwoods as Braxxie, I think.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I began my master's program. I didn't know about the Flatwoods monster.
Yes. Very regionally specific for sure.
Yes.
I like to say she, but I think that's improper. I think they
They, them?
more fair. Them, yes.
Yeah.
Is well known in like cryptid circles and stuff. Like if you type in Flatwoods monster to your podcast search engine, you'll get a million things that come up. And we're adding one
100%.
more, which is amazing.
Yep.
Ours is the best.
Yeah,
and,
100%.
And so it's well known, but it's also very regionally specific for sure. And it's a very unique story, right? Like there are no other cryptids that look like the Flatwood monster. And there are many skeptic. The common skeptic theory is that it was a comet. These people were just seeing a comet and a barn owl. Which, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I have not seen very many gigantic barn owls in my day, I should say.
No, that emit sulfur and spit oil. That's not really common.
I was not there.
Sure.
But yeah, so it's my favorite. It's my favorite of them all because it's so ambiguous. And even though, it could have just been a blip on the radar, we could have forgotten about it.
Yeah.
It's not. They've really sunk into the local folklore, and not even just the local folklore. It appears in video games.
Mm-hmm.
I think Fallout 76 is the name of the game. It makes an appearance. There's Flatwood monster in there.
So cool.
Comic books.
Yeah.
Really pop culture legend.
And it has such a big fan base.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And there's some cool, so right afterward, the town, Braxton County, they were like, we can capitalize on this a little bit, and more power to them. You have a small town in West Virginia.
Yeah.
Do what you gotta do, make that money.
Make it work. Yeah.
And so they started selling ceramic lanterns. Actually, I bought one.
Did you get one? I knew you would. Oh my.
Yeah.
That is so cool, Kayt.
Yes. And then the bottom.
What?
And so these have been made since the 60s, 70s. And they're made in Ohio by a local artist. And it's hollow on the bottom, so you can put a candle in there and it glows. And so it's kind of this really cool piece of regional folk art that they've kind of you can, like I said, you can still buy them. They've been selling them forever. The money goes back into the town. So it's this really cool piece of regional folk art that's so specific to that area. Who else is, if you saw that sitting on somebody's shelf and you didn't know what Flatwoods monster was, you'd be like, okay.
Yeah, it's a conversation starter for sure.
Right.
Which is so cool.
Yeah.
God.
Yes. Yeah. So it's a cool one.
Yeah, absolutely. And such an iconic visual too, like you said, as you saw, that red, bright red, fire truck red body, the spade kind of head, big eyes, the cape green or something, right? Green.
Yeah, some sort of armor yeah, exactly. And I think that's part of what makes the Flatwoods monster as iconic, maybe, is that it does have that really unique kind of visual aspect to it, which is memorable. So I think that's helped its longevity. And also it's just so weird, right? And it, like I said, it fits all the boxes. So if you want it to be an alien, it can be an alien. You want it to be a cryptid, it can be a cryptid. You can find a way to kind of make that your story, which I love.
And again, I think, and I'm still going to ask you the question, when we were talking about this earlier and figuring out what monster you wanted to talk about, you mentioned this air of mystery to this creature, everything and nothing. Right.
Yeah.
And, I think it kind of branches off of that. Is it an alien? Is it a cryptid? Is it a government conspiracy? What is it? And I'm curious what you meant by that. What do you mean everything and nothing?
Yeah, well, I think exactly kind of like we've been talking about there were only these few sightings.
Yeah.
It's not like a Bigfoot Yeti type situation where you have this, millennia of oral histories that go with it. You just have these little, really isolated incidences in 1952. And it has lived on so well despite such a humble beginning, one may say, And
yeah.
there's a lot of skeptics. Flatwood Monster has a lot of skeptics. I was talking to a friend about it, and they were like, that was a barn owl. That was a barn owl for sure, So it definitely, I think that's kind of where you get the nothing side of it, right? Like, you could easily kind of brush it off, but it won't allow that. Flatwood's not going anywhere.
No, never.
It's too iconic, right? And so that's where you get the everything side of it. Yeah. Alien, monster, government conspiracy theory.
Yeah. Oh, that's so crazy.
Whatever you want. It's a great cryptid for all those reasons. Plus, it's unique. Plus, it's helped put a small town in Virginia on the map. It crosses all the boxes,
So you know a little bit more about Fred and Ed. I'm curious, like, what do you know?
So I don't know. There is a documentary that they made or was made about this not that long. I have not watched it. It was made, I think, in the late, 2017, 2018. So it's not that old.
Okay.
And I would like to check it out. I need to.
Me too.
And essentially, kind of what I get is that they have really kind of stuck to their story all these years, which is part of what makes it, I think, that's also, when we talk about the believability side of cryptids.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a part of it, is that it's not like these guys, same thing with their mom, Kathleen, they did not try it, they weren't writing books, they weren't selling tell-alls, they weren't booking Oprah. They were hey, this is what we saw. If you want to do an interview, we'll do it. But we're not out there trying to, blast it from the stair, whatever.
Yeah.
They really stuck to their story, they kind of, no, it's not a barn owl. We've lived in the hills of West Virginia our entire lives. We know what a barn owl looks like. This was not a barn owl,
No.
And so they were pretty active in the Flatwoods community up until very recently. I don't know. I haven't looked too closely into when they passed away, but I know for sure Fred passed away just this year in 2023. So yeah, he was, around. He participated in the documentary. They've been happy to share their story.
Yeah.
But also are very we're not this wasn't some sort of extravagant thing that we're making up. This is what happened, and it happened to us a long time ago. This is what we saw.
Yeah.
They were always kind of convinced that it was very robot-like, machine-like.
Mm-hmm. That's right. You mentioned that with the arms. And
I think that sort of tends to be one of the more common descriptors of it, is that there was some sort of kind of mechanical aspect to it, not organic, which is really fascinating.
Yeah.
Especially and keep in mind the time frame too. We're talking about 1952.
Exactly. How frightening to see something like that just in
oh man, I don't know what kind of sci-fi movies were out back then, but I don't think it was anything too crazy.
No, not at all. And that's the thing. I just keep getting hung up on what it looked like. And I didn't know that it emitted this smell. I had no clue.
Yeah, the smell is one of the main features, this really unique kind of rotten egg smell to it. Yeah, that, like I said, supposedly had all the makings of mustard gas, or gave people the same illness that you would get from mustard gas. That's so wild. Insanely wild.
And I
think that's the other thing about this particular cryptid too, is that there's a story with it. It's not oh, my Uncle Randy was in the woods hunting, drinking beers, and saw Bigfoot.
Yeah.
These kids saw something crash, went out to explore it, and then got terrified and ran home. And any of us would.
Help.
They dealt with it the exact same way that I would, 100%. I don't know if I would have told my mom first, I will say. I probably would.
You're I might have told Doja. I don't know. But
yeah, Doja would not be down. Doja's a weenie. She would not have.
Doja would have had a heart attack. I don't think. No.
She would have made me carry her the whole way. Yeah.
Oh, sweet girl.
She's asleep. She's vibing.
She loves a good story hour.
She does love a good story. But yeah, so it's such a unique story, and like I said, I think the story of it makes it unique. The credibility, we got the haters. We're always gonna have the haters. Any good cryptid has a good hater.
Yeah.
But I think those folks saw something out there, whether it was a government test rocket, hot air balloon, whatever you want to call it, gone wrong.
Yeah.
So be it. But like they saw something out in the woods for sure.
Yeah.
It should be noted that one of the boys in their little posse was a National Guardsman. By all accounts, he was like the scariest of them all, but still, that does help the credibility side of things.
Yeah. And
Also,
why, yeah. And you mentioned, and we were talking about this when we were thinking about the definition of what a cryptid is, right? And you keep talking about like the skeptics and the haters, and like that's, as you mentioned, that's like such a massive part of cryptids, unfortunately, is not just did this really happen, but a lot of people, a lot of survivors of attacks from said cryptids, or they're witnesses, like they get a lot of flack. Like people don't necessarily believe them right away. Why do you think that's such a huge conversation? Believability and credibility, and trying to prove yourself, or prove to others rather, that this cryptid exists.
Yeah, absolutely. I think from what I hear, that was something that Fred and Ed encountered afterward. People not believing them, they kind of had to tell their story on their own terms, and maybe struggled to get jobs and stuff like that, which I think is also something that affects, people who maybe have alien abduction stories, stuff like that. Really kind of a lot of stereotypes surround that kind of stuff. But yeah, there's just, I think we have this need to make people believe us, right? Even when you're just telling like office gossip, or like telling your mom something that happened last weekend, be like, no, I swear, like that's what she said. I'm not making it up, we just need people to like know that we're real. And especially when you're talking about something that is so unbelievable, right? Like if you told me that you saw the Flatwoods Monster, I would be like, dog, I don't know about that. It's such a unique story. But by all accounts, Doja's about to bark. Be prepared.
We're ready. She's ready.
She's she's given up. She's given up. They've been deemed not a threat.
Gotcha.
But anyways, believability is important when it comes to cryptids. But I don't think it's important. At the end of the day, there's very little that I can say that will change your mind, right? Me being like, no, I swear.
Sure.
It doesn't matter. I think it's the believability of the people who are telling the stories, right? They're the ones who like need to think that you believe them.
Absolutely. There's that autonomous factor of like, I have control of this story and this narrative, and something fascinating and crazy and terrifying happened to me, and I have that. That's mine. Like this is mine. And I think, as you mentioned, right, like there is an inherent need for human beings to like want to be believed and trusted and seen as I'm not crazy. And unfortunately, not just in cryptid land, right, but I argue in spooky territory in general, and folklore territory, right? Like I'm sure you get this all the time, Kate, but like sometimes when I tell people what I got a master's degree, and they're like, what is that? Like that's nothing. Or what is that, silly stories? Is that all fake stuff? Is that right? Like constantly trying to prove yourself, like, no, you don't understand. Like I'm always a firm believer too in like, I love believing people with like whatever they tell me about monsters or anything. I love it. I'm going to believe it until, for whatever reason, it's proven wrong, I'm going to believe it. I think it's so fun and exciting, and I totally believe there are other things out there. But people also question like, oh, there's no possible way that could have happened. And it's like, if it's believable for one person if they cried because they saw something, if they felt their heart race because they saw something, if they started like having these flashbacks of like them as younger because they were scared they were going to die that day, right? Like these very human emotions should be believable enough, that something scared them, that something was out there, that something, right? And I think, just, just because, like you mentioned, just because somebody doesn't believe you, doesn't mean you should stop believing in yourself.
Put that on a t-shirt.
I mean, come on, right? Like,
no, it's totally true, though. It's totally true. And I think that's kind of exactly like you said, when I talk to people and say, oh, I'm really interested in supernatural tourism, right? Like this concept of commodification of the supernatural. But part of that comes with the believability aspect of it. People aren't going to travel to Flatwoods if they don't think something happened. Or there's not some sort of lore, right? Like, ooh, I want to know. I want to see. I drove my ass to Flatwoods, West Virginia to check out the Flatwoods Museum, and I would go
just for that.
Exactly, yeah.
It was so cool, guys. Kate was sending me a video. It was so cool. So cool. It is.
And also just like shout out to the town of Sutton and Flatwood. They're like right next to each other. They're cool little spaces. Like they had some really rad little local boutiques and coffee shops and stuff like that. Absolutely worth a visit if you're in that area.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to the point of like cryptids are, you're gonna, no matter who you talk to, you're gonna encounter somebody who does not believe you. It is what it is.
Sure.
But I think our job as folklorists and just as humans who want to be kind to other humans is exactly like you said. If somebody comes up to me and is telling me a story about a ghost encounter, even if I fully on don't believe that, I believe that you believe what happened to you and that you were affected by it. And I will defend you till the end of my days. If you experience something,
Yeah.
So I think, of course, there are times where that's not always the case. I think that's where the commodification side can kind of come in, right? People can make money off of it. There are Amityville is a fun example of the commodification of horror, which is fascinating but depressing because real people did die in those situations.
Yeah.
But I think in general, so many people have some sort of encounter, whether it be ghosts, cryptids, something unexplainable, a light in the sky. My dad has, one time I was driving and I saw lights up in the sky.
Like,
and
just
he
like
is
nothing.
From
just
a place
like nothing.
in Florida where UFOs are infamously seen. So I'm like, wait, you just like, you had like a UFO sighting and you just like casually mentioned that to me? Like, what?
That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's like so many people have some sort of experience of like the otherworldly that, there's got to be something. There's got to be something going on that we don't understand. And think about, this is such a point that every single person makes on every cryptid podcast or show or whatever, but duck-billed platypus, giant squid, those were all cryptids once upon a time.
You're right. You're right.
Narwhal, still maybe a cryptid by some accounts. I've never seen
it. Right.
So
exactly.
Everything's a monster until it's not.
And a lot of it is just because of people that don't understand. We haven't branched that far out in that research area yet. Or maybe we have, but people are secretive about it. Like there is a lot of stuff we just don't know. Which again adds to the air and excitement.
Exactly. Maybe the Men in Black is going to come and put the hammer down on your research. It's happened before. It'll happen again.
Yeah, if I hear anything too about like anybody trying to shut down this podcast for that reason alone, that's how we'll know, everyone. Just saying, if this podcast stops.
I will jump in. I will have, you know what? If that happens, we'll have a new, really great true crimes podcast that comes out. What happened to Camille?
What happened to the Krakens?
Hosted by Kayt Novak.
I'd listen.
We'll find you, girl. Don't you worry.
Okay, good.
We'll find you.
But I think I really appreciate that, like, you mentioned, you just naturally are into, like, supernatural tourism. And I'm really happy that you mentioned that because, again, people don't realize how far folklore goes in real ways, in very real everyday ways. Something as quote unquote simple as like attracting people into a town making money for the local workers there, keeping the economy booming, right? Like there's so many different aspects, but also, as you said, there are some darker notes of the abuse of that.
Yeah.
And that could be really terrifying and dangerous. And I think, as you mentioned, Amityville, whoa, like if you ever did, research on that, if you ever just looked at the Wikipedia page, right? Like there is some crazy, crazy stuff that has happened after the haunting, right? Like far,
Yeah,
far
yeah.
beyond that. And yet, like, and I know there are like some aspects of supernatural tourism where race gets involved and racism
Oh,
gets
for
involved,
sure.
where people
Yeah.
try to commodify, places where slaves were held and
The haunted
abused.
plantation thing is,
It's
very, very common
huge.
trope in the South. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's so common, and it's just so confusing
Yeah.
to me.
It's complicated, right? And
Yeah.
as it should be, that's the world we live in, is that everything that we know is built on the back of somebody else, right? And so how do you respect them, what they went through, honor the tragedy and horror of, slavery or colonism or whatever it was, while still acknowledging that, like, yeah, there might be ghosts, that shit might be terrifying, and like those people might very well still be here,
Absolutely.
as are the people that subjugated them to that. It is a very complicated narrative to have to tell. And I think there are a lot of places that do a good job with it. There are a lot of places that don't do a good job with it. It's complicated. It's very complicated. And luckily nobody died in the Flatwoods monster story, which makes it, I think, more easier to tell too, right? That might be part of the reason why it's kind of glommed on as popular as it is because there's no inherent tragedy with it. Nobody died. At one point, there are some tellings of the story in which a dog dies, but then there are other stories. Fred and Ed May insist the dog did not die. So we have a redemption. The dog survives, apparently.
Thank goodness, because that would have been the real tragedy.
I agree. It would have been any Krakens story where the dog dies. Any story in general is not a story for us.
Same. Yeah, I agree. No.
But yeah, so I think that's part of the reason that the Flatwood story is a little easier and a little bit more fun to tell, is because it is kind of just a fun story of some cool, spooky sighting. The people who dealt with it might not agree, right? Like they had some pretty real world consequences, but again, nobody died. Could have been worse. And you don't get that with some other stories, you know. So I think that makes it a little easier, a little more palatable, for sure.
And speaking of being palatable too, I think, aside from the amazing, incredible museum that exists, there are also a lot of other pieces of local West Virginian or Braxton County pride. And like you said, there's festivals, there's like so many different things. And one of them that I didn't know about till you told me about this, Kayt, was Miss West Virginia dressing up as the Flatwoods Monster in the Miss America competition, which was incredible. Yes. Absolutely incredible.
Yes.
It was so cool.
And it just shows you how things can be adapted. I don't know. It's such a great example of like pop culture, mainstream meets like deep, individualized, localized lore, right?
Yeah.
And I think that it's cool that there's such regional pride. I think once upon a time, some of those stories would get kept like hidden away. Don't tell people about this. People are going to think you're crazy, but now it's like, nah, no, we're repping it. We're repping it hard, which I think is so rad,
Yes, I do too. And I love it. I think it's so fun. And, like it also, I think, saves a beautiful spot at the table for weird kids that don't feel fit in and quite honestly feel the most relatable to a cryptid.
Yes.
Like even my 28-year-old self, right? Like looking at Miss West Virginia, dressed in full head to toe Flatwoods garb. Like, right, like in this organization, in this contest that is supposed to be a long time ago was very much about beauty and being the perfect woman and bullshit like that.
Yes.
But seeing her do that and just be like, hi, like I'm hot and a cryptid and incredible. This is what I decided to wear. Was so cool to me.
I know. I totally agree. And I think, we're in a cryptid golden era right now where they're being embraced. People are a little bit more down with them. They have Mothman is my boyfriend. That I saw that sticker a million places in West Virginia.
He is the heartthrob, apparently.
He's you know what? It's the butt. His ass on the Mothman statue is as juicy as you think it is. If you go to West Virginia for nothing else other than to stare at the ass of the Mothman statue in Point Pleasant, that's fair.
He's thick. He is thick.
Truly. So I get it. I do get it. But yeah, I love that. I think you're totally right. And I think there is the economic side of it.
Sure.
West Virginia struggles. They have had, economic shortfalls with the coal industry suffering along those lines, blah, 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 as is many other Kentucky, everywhere else. So like having some sort of, hey, you don't have to just come here for this sort of industry. You can come here because there's a lot of other cool stuff going on too. There's also a Bigfoot museum in right 2 blocks from the Flatwood Museum.
So like cool.
Go check out Flatwood Museum. Go hunt for Bigfoot. You can do literally all of that in one day in West Virginia. And look for Mothman while you're at it.
Come on.
Full weekend you're gonna have in West Virginia.
Full weekend, you may get a boyfriend out of it. I don't know, right? Like that sounds incredible. What a lovely time.
Yeah. And so, but no, I think you're totally right. Like people are embracing it a little bit more. They're embracing the weird side of things. It's beautiful. Yeah. It's a beautiful thing. We love to see it.
Really cool. We do. And we support it. And it's amazing. We're hoping one day, I mentioned this to Kayt earlier this week, but I was like, Kayt and I need to make a road trip and we will record the entire thing of just like, I don't know what it's going to consist of. At the moment, we're just going to call it a spooky road trip where we visit very terrifying things and museums, cemeteries and the like. So hopefully we can take a drive out there because I really want to see that stuff. I think it could be really fun.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. First and foremost, Flatwoods is only 3 hours from where I live. 4 hours.
It's not bad.
Like, we can do that. Second, if we're going to be in Albuquerque for AFS, shout out to AFS. Lots of shout out this episode. Roswell.
We could go to Roswell.
Come on.
Oh my gosh. I'm so excited. That's okay. We're going to make a plan. We're going to make it work.
I'm ready for it.
Okay, great. Well, Kayt, since, in case this, hour and a half long episode isn't enough proof, you really, really love the Flatwoods Monster, right? And so I'm curious, why? Why have you gravitated toward this being so much?
Yeah, such a good question. I think kind of for a lot of the reasons we've talked about, right? The ambiguity. There it is.
Yeah, you got it.
I was getting there. The ambiguity of it, just such a unique story, unique cryptid, unique monster in general. That's spade-like head. You can't forget that, right? And the story itself. I mean, I listen to there's a lot of cryptid stories out there, right? A lot of true crime podcasts. You can spook yourself out all day.
Yeah.
This one is unique, I think. It is. Just because the creature they encountered is so unique. The elements of the story are so unique. It's not like anything else I've heard before, which I kind of gravitate to. And I appreciate the debate, right? Like I listen to a lot of different sources, just naturally because I love Flatwood, but also kind of to get ready. And each different source I listened to, they had a different theory on what they thought it was, which it was so interesting hearing all these different people a lot of people thought it was an alien. A lot of people thought it was a government conspiracy. Other people thought it was like a monster, hey,
purely,
was like in the woods that day. So I really appreciate that you can kind of make it what you will. And I think the commodification side of it, I think that sometimes the commodification of things can be negative, right? Like that there's a lot of examples of that. Britney Spears, we love you, girl.
Britney forever.
Oh God, frequently met. But I think this is kind of one of the more positive cases of that, right? Like it's really kind of been a good thing for the town.
Yeah.
They've been able to put their name on the map. You know, these lanterns are adorable, and it is a prized possession that I will save in a fire if I have to. I love it so much.
Yeah.
You know, at one point they had these lanterns on their streetlights throughout the city.
No way.
So like they're, you know, I shouldn't say city, it's a little town. It's precious.
It's so cute. Yeah.
But so I think that there's just a lot to love about it. And I'm, you know, I'm a fan of any kind of localized cryptid like that too. I think there's probably some out there that I haven't heard of yet that
Yeah.
I will also become obsessed with. I have a lot of tattoos, and I have an open spot right on my thigh.
Right on your
I'm trying to decide. I might get a Flatwoods tattoo. I might get a Bigfoot tattoo. There might be a different cryptid with the cryptid that I don't even know about yet that I need to get tattooed. So
Either way, you need to get a cryptid on your thigh, I think, for
oh
sure.
yeah, I think so too. It's gonna happen.
And maybe it's Mothman's butt. I don't know. Just his butt.
Maybe it is.
Yeah.
That's a choice. That is a choice I could make. But yeah, so I think Flatwoods is just, the Flatwoods monster is just unique, right? And I think there's something to be said for this idea of you don't have to fit into a box, right? You don't have to just be an alien. You don't have to just be a government conspiracy. You can be all those things. You can be whatever you want.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's a great example of people trying to put a label on something and just not being able to do that. Flatwoods cannot be labeled. And I think that's great. You know, it's such a good example of like kind of following your own tune.
Yeah. I never thought about it that way. Yeah. There's a lot of freedom and independence in that, and power. Like so much power of like, you will never understand what I am, and like
Right.
where I float and where I fly and where I came from. And that's kind of brilliant. Like that's so freeing and so fascinating. And I don't know. I just think it's really cool and totally true. And in a strange way, again, it paves a really well needed, like necessary path for those who feel lost too, and kind of don't vibe with any label or any specific road or any specific path. Like that's why I think cryptids are so fascinating.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
And like you said, they start different conversations
totally.
for people. So
totally. Yeah. And I think, you know, like we've been talking about, there's something out there for everybody, you know?
Yeah.
There's a cryptid for everybody, and Flatwoods might be that cryptid. It fits all the categories. So,
yeah.
I really appreciate the you can do whatever you want. You don't have to, and you can do whatever you want and be successful, right? You can be in a video game. You can be in pop culture. You can be a pop culture icon. If you know, do your own thing. Don't always follow the chosen path.
Exactly. I totally stand by that. Honestly, Flatwoods monster for president. If they're thinking of running.
It might be younger than Joe Biden. So,
well,
hey, I'm just stating a fact, okay? I love Joe Biden, but I think that he was born before 1952.
Yeah, that's fair. I feel like Flatwoods monster is endless in time, no age.
No age, and that's why I feel. I mean, everything is a she to me, because I love the feminine.
Absolutely.
But, there's no gender. I mean, truly, you can't put a gender on the Flatwood. Yeah, there's no time. It is, as above all, time and place construct.
Just is. Yeah.
It just is.
It's
beautiful. So poetic.
So do you think this beautiful poetic creature is the Flatwoods monster, even though monster is obviously in the title? Do you think the Flatwoods monster fits your definition of monster? Do you think it is a monster?
Ooh. So I think, as we're going to get a little deep, but I think you have to separate the actual story from the lore when it comes to whether or not the Flatwoods is scary and or a monster.
Okay.
I think, like, as we've kind of talked about, if we were in that space encountering the Flatwoods monster as it was happening, I would be terrified. Straight up. Holy crap.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm 5'1". Encountering something that's 10 feet tall is like not good for me.
Very scary. Very scary.
So tall.
So tall.
So like, you know, that's a factor. I think that I would be terrified if I was in Fred and Ed's shoes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But like my lantern, not a monster.
So
I
cute.
love it. Right? It's so precious.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And so I think that the lore, the Flatwoods monster that we know today, I don't think would be considered, well, I mean, I guess it would be considered a monster because it's literally called the Flatwoods monster. So it makes things a little complicated.
Sure.
But I don't think it's scary, right? I don't think it's something, I mean, I sent you photos from the Flatwoods Monster Museum. Children have dressed up like the Flatwoods monster for school plays.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Totally, I think kind of has moved beyond the terrifying beginnings that it came from, and has sort of been adopted as a town mascot. So yeah, I think originally, hell yeah, scary monster,
Terrifying.
spooky as all hell. Those guys had I would have ran my ass away too. Totally get it.
Yeah.
I think that Flatwoods has evolved from its terrifying beginnings.
Yeah.
And is now a beloved local hero.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you've added that these two sides of the coin for the term monster, of like monsters, yes, can be fearful and terrifying, but also can be fearful and iconic because they emit such power and such pride in that strange path, right? And so I think that's really cool. That I love that. I love that aspect of that cryptid.
Oh, totally, right? Yeah, and that's exactly where we get back to everything and nothing. You know,
everything and nothing.
It's a really deep and thought-provoking cryptid.
Yeah, in the best way.
In the best way, for sure. And I'm excited. I want everybody to know about the Flatwoods monster because it is a really cool one, and I think that I want more people to like be aware. There's some great cryptids out there. So
many.
Start doing your homework.
Many. You know what you all should ask for Christmas? You all should ask for just a calendar of cryptids. They make those. They do journal cryptids, like where you just learn about a new cryptid every day. There are so many fun ways to learn about all of the different cryptids in the nation, let alone the world. So
there are Bigfoot sightings in almost all 50 states. It might be all 50 states. I might be wrong. But if not all 50, it's like 48. Like,
it's so
you
cool.
could go on a Bigfoot road trip. Shit, why don't we do that?
Maybe we should. Actually, put that at the top of the list.
Yeah.
Because inherently, we'll visit every state, so it'll be fun.
It makes perfect sense. I would love to see a Bigfoot in Nebraska or some of the flatter places of the country. Those are probably the best kind of Bigfoots.
Me too.
Mm-hmm. So. But yeah, I mean, there are many cryptid out there, and Flatwood is just a great example of one of the more localized ones.
I love it. So cool. So cool.
So cool.
Okay. So last question.
All right.
For whatever reason, you're just chilling with Doja, right? You're having a lovely afternoon, and you get a knock on the door, and there is the Flatwoods monster at your door.
What?
Crazy, right? What? How did this happen?
Dreams do come true.
Exactly. And they did for you in that moment. What would you say? What would you do?
Okay, well, first and foremost, I would say, let's get you on over to the Washington Wizards, because they are struggling, and they could really use some sort of instrumental...
Oh my God.
Power forward something. Okay, but aside from that would be that's just right now during basketball season. If he came in July, it would be different.
Looking for a job.
There you go. In all honesty, well, first and foremost, I think the Flatwoods monster needs. I just feel like he needs like some love or some like. What can we do for you? How can we help you? Some way. Like, are you lost? Are you in need of something that you're not being provided in your terrifying ship? Like, what can we help you with, my dear Flatwoods monster? Yeah. Especially if they showed up at my door, that they need something from me. I would feel like some sort of like chosen one situation where I'd be like,
yeah.
all right, you're here. What do you
Your
need from
journey
me?
begins.
Yeah, right. I feel like it'd be like my Frodo moment, and that'd be my Gandalf, and it's happening.
That would totally be your Lord of the Rings moment, 100%.
Oh, it would, man.
So cool. Having Flatwoods Monster as like your guiding light, as your mentor, come on.
Get out of here.
So fun.
The best. You wouldn't the best guiding light you could ever ask for.
Literally, it's actually a guiding light. It has
But
lights
it
for
literally
eyes.
has been used to guide people in the town of Flatwoods. So, it works out on many levels.
Yeah. And I love that you always think about it as, I mean, you're a very empathetic person, but I love that it goes that way.
Ew.
Well, I think you are. Me.
I would say most of the time I try and be. But I just feel like that's, like going back to the original story of like the Flatwoods monsters seeing that group of people and spitting the oily substance. Like they were clearly freaked out, right? Like they got scared, they were caught off guard.
Yeah.
I just feel like they need some sort of something. I mean, they need help with something in the world.
Yeah.
What that is,
that's
I don't
beautiful.
know.
Sure. I mean, I don't know. Just saying, you never know who might knock on your door one day.
I might get mustard gas poisoning from it, but it might be worth it.
Maybe this is your time to start investing in a gas mask.
That
just
could be
in case.
valid. Yes, that could
in the
be
off
fair.
chance. Yeah.
We'll look into that.
Great. Good.
But yeah, I think the Flatwoods monster needs a helping hand.
A friend.
A friend.
Yeah.
I think that.
This episode of Floaties for Krakens was written and produced by me, Camille Maria Costa. And thank you to Kayt Novak for such an outstanding interview. And a huge thank you to Natalie Hedberg for designing such a phenomenal logo. And music for the show was also written and produced by me, with a special appearance by my tata, Tobio Costa. Thank you all so much for tuning into today's show. It means the world to me. If you have questions or curiosities about my research or any media referenced in this episode, everything will hopefully be in the description box. You can find us on our website and our socials, links in the descriptions as well. Anyway, thanks again for being here, everyone. And just a reminder, it's okay to be afraid of the monster, but it's also okay to love the heck out of it too. Keep being monstrous and keep shining bright.